you chose the world of snakes and snake handling and snake conferences for the June Nash series. At least the first one. There's a little bit less in the second one, though it's still there in the background. Why snakes? And then also, I just have to say, it made me think of the classic Sherlock Holmes story, The Adventures of the Speckled Band. So at some point, and I've only read the first two books, does a snake, or in your mind, does a snake at any point become the, unwitting killer?
No, but there are other creatures out there. And the whole snake thing, my husband was an amateur herpetologist, and at one point we had 100 snakes. And that was about 40 adults, and the rest were babies. So we would raise the babies and then sell them at snake shows. And he got an assignment to Izmir, Turkey for 1 year. And at the time, the U.S. military wouldn't let family members accompany the military member to Turkey, but every other country let their family members go. Just the U.S. wouldn't. So he went, and I had to take care of his snakes. Now, we had been I would go sometimes with them when they would go snake hunting. And yes, they would be driving along the road. They would slam the brakes on. Everybody would run out and look at a stick in the road. And I'm in the car going, it's a stick. And they would all run out of the car and look at the stick in the road and go, oh, it's not a snake. Then get back in the car. They'd drive slow and they'd slam the brakes on again. So that would make me super nauseous. So I kind of tucked that away. And at the time, I was doing a lot of behind the scenes camera work. And so I was thinking about doing a documentary about people who go out and look for snakes, amateur herpetologists. So, and I thought, okay, I'm going to call it How to Sex Your Snake, because these guys and the ladies they would sex the snake sometimes, and there's a tube involved and there's things involved, and I get nauseous just thinking about it, as does June. And then he was going to be gone, and I just couldn't find, they were very interesting people, but I couldn't find enough of a hook to make a documentary work. And then I said, well, maybe I'll write a screenplay. And so I was trying to write a screenplay, and then I spent a year watching his snakes. So this was twice a month. I would go in on Saturday. It would take all day long. And I would separate the snakes and I would feed them. And there's tongs involved. And you have to be careful. You don't use live mice, because then the mice can attack the snakes and they can hurt them. We had a boa constrictor. She was, how big was she? About 9 feet long. And she was about yay big, thick around. And the person who had her before would throw her in the back of their truck, close the lid, and then throw live rats in with her. And then she wasn't always hungry, so the rats would attack her. And our daughter counted like dozens and dozens and dozens of scars on this poor snake's body. So her name was Strawberry Margarita. So I'm watching the snakes and taking care of them. And there was one day that, and our daughter would take the snake, because that was her favorite snake. And she would take the snake, and she needed a lot of humidity. So she would take her into the bathroom. She would turn the shower on, and she'd close the door. This is the whole bathroom. And when the snake was done with her shower, she would climb out. And as she climbed out, she'd turn the shower off. Then she'd climb up over the shower curtain, and then she'd stretch across, and she'd hang on the light fixture to dry herself off.
Wow.
So one day, I didn't know that she was in there, and I walked in to put some towels in there. I took a step in, stopped, and the snake's face is an inch from mine, and the tongue is coming out and touching my nose. And she's got a really big jaw. So I think, was I bitten by her? Somebody in the family got bitten by her by accident, and it left, their teeth are pretty sharp. They go in, they come out. It doesn't necessarily hurt. Sometimes it does. It just depends on how big the snake is. But that one hurt, whoever got bit. And I'm thinking, my face is a goner.
Oh.
And I backed out, closed the door, and went to my computer and wrote the scene in the bathroom of How to Sex Your Snake.
Right.
So, and then I built it on either end, just kept building the book until I had a basics. But it still took me 10 years to publish that first book. I think that was in 2004 when I first started writing it, and I published in 2017, actually. Started in 2004 and moved to Key West. No, actually, in 2004, I was writing it as a screenplay still and trying to write as a documentary.
Mm-hmm.
Then we had all the snakes, and this was 2007 when he was gone for a year. Then he came home and he was transferred to Key West. And got to Key West and started writing. I wrote the first 3 chapters about 30 times because I wasn't sure. In the first chapter, Dewey was her husband, not her brother.
Okay.
Yeah, that's weird. I know he's her
Now
brother
now it's
now, and that's weird. I rewrote a
Yeah.
bunch of that. And her arch nemesis, the very first line of the book, he was dead, her arch nemesis.
Okay.
And then I realized, nah, I need this arch nemesis. I really do. And her brother is kind of a MacGuffin. I mean, he doesn't need to be there.
Yeah.
And he is there in more in other books, but he doesn't really, he's not necessary.
Yeah.
The whole idea of Dewey and her being the personal assistant needs to be there to give her what she's doing with her life.
Right.
So then I got there, and this good friend of mine, James, we would get together with each other and write. And he kept saying, you know, he had ideas. He would read it and go, okay, maybe you should have this, or maybe you should have that. And so those first 3 chapters I wrote over and over. And then I finally buckled down. And in 2017, I finally finished and published it. So
Yeah.
it was a long time to be able to figure out how to write a novel versus how to write a screenplay.
I'm glad that you didn't kill off Morgan, because it would not be the same book without that dynamic between the two of them.
For the first line of the first book was Morgan Durgan was dead.
Yeah.
And they find him dead, and they're trying to figure out who killed him.
Right.
And then I realized, nah, that's not good. And he's such a fun character. But and when I wrote him, I want him to be kind of flirt with June, but to be very respectful. And if she was not interested in something, he wasn't going to push her.
Right.
And I think there's a line in there where he says to her, you know, if you ever want to have sex, great, because guys will have sex. All a woman has to do is ask, and guys are like, okay, he said, but if you don't, then that's fine too. There's always somebody else.
Right.
So
yeah,
like, hey,
I like
okay,
him.
but no thanks. Yeah,
he's
yeah.
a good character.
But I get people all the time that say, when are Morgan and June going to get together?
I mean, I get it.
Yeah,
you know, I'm not really surprised.